go from the 1870s to the 1930s and 40s. And we have a certain group of people, Latter-day Saints in the American West, that were being trodden down as well by government, as well as mobs, abused, falsely imprisoned, to such a point where even people that weren't a part of their faith said that they were being abused and they wouldn't stand up for them, like Alexander Donathan. And so to be able to defend themselves and to be able to defend their rights, their God-given rights, I've talked about this a lot, is, are we begging for our rights? Are we saying that our rights come from a president, a governor, a legislator, a congressman, a judge? Or are we going to say, no, God already gave us our rights, and so I'm going to claim them? Joseph knew that that's what he had to do. And so he explained here, he says, I organized into a special council to take into consideration the best policy for this people to adopt to obtain their rights from the nation and secure protection for themselves and children, and to secure a resting place in the mountains or some uninhibited region where we can enjoy the liberty of conscience guaranteed to us by the Constitution of our country. He recognized that they could not enjoy the liberty of conscience if they continued to live amongst people that they were not united in. It's impossible. It leads to the strife that they saw. He recognizes we have to separate ourselves. That's the only way we are going to be able to guarantee our rights. And Brigham Young explained the same principle. He says, you all know and have doubtless felt for years the necessity of a removal, provided the government should not be sufficiently protective to allow us to worship God according to the dictates of our own consciences and of the omnipotent voice of eternal truth. Two cannot walk together except they be agreed. That's that same principle that Pufendorf was talking about. You're going to have these two people that aren't on the same page, and there's going to be strife. You can be friends with people, right? You can be friends. You're like, hey, we have different views and we have different ideas of what government should do. And you go over there, you over there in France, you do your thing. And we're over here and in America, we're going to do our thing. But we're not going to be together in governing ourselves. And so to walk together, we have to be agreed. And Orson Spencer talking about this, this was after when the Saints were looking for a place outside of the United States, again, out of Illinois, trying to figure out what are we going to do? And he, in a memorial to Congress, said, and we will lay down the following principle, which the Friends to National Union may do well to consider. Okay, just like we talked about before, people that are naysayers, people that want to support the status quo of giving the government more power, will say that nullification leads to strife and leads to rebellion and leads to the dissolving of a country. Well, the founding fathers said, no, nullification is what will keep us together because that's enforcing the Constitution. So he says this is a principle that will actually do well to consider, that does not lead to strife, but actually helps to keep people friends. The principle is this, that men of congenial interest should separate themselves from those of adverse interests and pair off each to each. The promiscuous intermixture of heterogeneous bodies for the purpose of unity and strength is alike distant both from pure religion and sound philosophy. He says this principle is based not only in what people have been able to observe, but it's what the scriptures have taught throughout time, is that people of similar interests need to be able to be together. And so that's what was happening. We celebrate for what's traditionally called Pioneer Day, which I think, and we'll show you, there's a better name for it. The time must come when there will be a separation between this kingdom and the kingdoms of this world, even in every point of view. The time must come when this kingdom must be free and independent from all other kingdoms. Are you prepared to have the thread cut today? The people in Utah, they said, no, we're going to leave. You guys aren't on the same page as us. We have to come out here. We're declaring independence. We're cutting the thread. Heber C. Kimball explained, we shall eventually be a free people and independent people. And I will tell you, the day of our separation has come, and we are a free and an independent people. That's what their goal was. They were separating themselves from those that they could not walk in agreement with. Brigham Young said, I say, as the Lord lives, we are bound to become a sovereign state in the Union or an independent nation by ourselves. He understood that they were not going to allow us to be a sovereign state, that they were going to be over us, just like when we can see that in the Utah state constitution, that we are merely a subsidiary of the federal government, that the state of Utah is not a sovereign state. And so if they're not going to give us our sovereignty, we have to be an independent nation by ourselves. It is the duty of the true minister of Christ to teach them by precept and example how to become an independent nation, not global citizens. These are principles that aren't just, that are over time. This wasn't something that just Brigham Young taught. This wasn't something that the founding fathers taught. This is something that that we've gone over, that you can see it in the Old Testament, you can see it in the New Testament, you can see it in the natural law philosophers of Europe. You can see it what the founding fathers taught, and you can see it what these men taught. And the conspiracy has done a job to help us to forget, to make us to forget. Because if we forget these principles, then we will continue to whimper and beg for our rights like dogs. We will say that they are the author of our liberty and not God. And we will continue to work in this process of all the things we talk about in Liberty Boot Camp, of all of the different traditional solutions that are actually designed to give the government power. Following these traditional solutions is what has put us into to the situation that we're in. We need to remember, right? The founding fathers, they looked at history. They said, okay, we'll look throughout time, what kind of government was able to preserve liberty, what provided liberty to the people. But before that, they said, and that what we're showing here is, if you're in a situation where you are not in a free government, how do you make a free government? And so this is what we need to do. This is why we talk about so much about the importance of ruining these Satanists' legitimacy, because the more that people understand that they're illegitimate, the less that they will be listened to, and the more that we can start to have the liberty that God has promised us. And so instead of calling it Pioneer Day, I like to call it Deseret Independence Day, because it gives a clearer idea of what was going on. As a kid, I always thought that the pioneer stories were boring. They were just a bunch of people just in covered wagons walking across the plains. What for? I mean, it didn't make any sense. It was more than just simple, hey, we need to separate ourselves because we're being attacked. There were solid principles on this, and we weren't just pioneers. We weren't explorers discovering a new land, but there was an actual idea and a principle behind it, and something that was trying to be done. And the conspiracy has worked to destroy our understanding of that on the whole with America and the war for independence, as well as in the West, and what we've done to what was being done to build independence here. And so it's my hope that we will bring about those things to our remembrance, and we will start to implement those things individually, and as we get stronger, that we can do it in a much broader scale.